Hello, singing friends. Welcome back to my channel. It's Miki here, your friendly neighborhood singing coach. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to be doing a reaction request from my friend and viewer Loris Hassani. And Loris asked me to look at a video compilation that he made comparing Adele and Ofra Haza. And these two singers, your knee-jerk reaction might be, well, how can you compare them, right? When I think of Adele, I think of somebody who is firmly ensconced within pop music. She's a belter. She's got a really, really strong belt, massive pipes, right? And she really writes pop songs, very beautiful, very heartfelt, but still pop songs, popular music. And when I think about Ofra, I think of somebody that has this clear voice like a bell. You know, she's got such clarity in her voice, and she mixes genres. She comes from this tradition from the Middle East, and she does have a lot of crossover music, but it's not something that's so in the Western canon. It's got a lot of different worldly influences. And I usually think of her as a soprano. I usually think of Adele as having a lower, richer, fuller, heavier voice. But if you look at their vocal classifications, they actually are both considered Mezzo Sopranos. So it's not an entirely unfair comparison. And I think it also kind of highlights the limitations of vocal classification. I think it's a useful tool to find out if you are a soprano or a contralto or a mezzo soprano in the middle there, but it only goes so far, right? Wherever your tessitura is, that's where your voice is most comfortable. However, you can have a really expansive range that straddles several of those buckets of vocal classification. You know, some people have a 1.5 octave range. Some people have a 5-6 octave range. So they may be able to sing very, very high, even if they're classified as a contralto, or very, very low, even if they're classified as a soprano. So there are some real marked differences between these two singers, but I think it's going to be interesting to compare and contrast the two. I will say at the beginning of this video, I'm not going to be declaring a winner of these two singers. I think they're both incredible in their own right. They've achieved so much success, rightfully so. They have really impressive oeuvres of work, both of them. So I'm not going to be saying one is better than the other, but I will try and point out differences in their voices. All right, so let's jump right in and check it out. As usual, I'll be pausing it a few times so that I don't get flagged, and I will put the uninterrupted video link in the description box below if you want to go out there and check it out. All right, so let's jump right in.
Everybody loves the things you do, from the way you talk to the way you move. Everybody here is watching you, 'cause you feel like home. You're like a dream come true. But if by chance you're here alone, can I have a moment before I go? 'Cause I've been by myself all night long, hoping you're someone I used to know.
I think she has an absolutely gorgeous instrument. There's something that's really, really nice about the timbre of her voice. She has a very, very rich, resonant sound. It's very well balanced. And she sings with a very low-placed resonance. So I want to show you guys a little trick that I find very interesting. You can sing the same note, placing your resonance low in your body or placing your resonance high in your body, and one will sound much lower than the other. So if I sing from here, if I'm imagining that my voice is coming out of the earth through my feet or even through my sits bones, you know, everybody here is watching you, from the way you talk to the way you move. That's going to sound much lower than if I just think about my voice floating up here. Everybody's watching what you do, from the way you talk to the way you move. I think I messed up the lyrics, but you get the idea. So just using a very simple visualization trick of where you're singing from, where you're placing your voice, lowering or raising your resonance, can really make a difference in how low your voice sounds. So Adele is singing from very, very low in her body. And one of the things that she ran into later in her career is that you carry a lot of weight when you come from there. You know, you're really staying locked into that chest voice coordination. And when you get higher up, closer to your passaggio, where your voice should start to transition into your head voice, if you're really gripping with those chest voice muscles, it puts a lot of strain on your voice. It can cause things like nodes. But I think her voice is absolutely beautiful. And I also noticed a lot of the subtleties in her singing. She uses a lot of vocal fry at the beginning of phrases, right? Everybody's watching, what do you do? When you go from that relaxed to singing tone on a note. So I thought that was absolutely beautiful.
I let it fall, my heart, and does it fail? You rose to claim it. It was dark. And I was over until you kissed my lips and you saved me. My hands, they were strong, but my knees were far too weak to stand in your arms without falling to your feet.
So here is a great example of what an amazing songwriter Adele is as well. I mean, every song that she writes and every song on her records is a hit. So they're very, very catchy. They're very easy to remember. Also, she's showing off some of her ornaments, and they're very pop style ornaments. So she's not doing these crazy long melismas, but at the end of phrases, she'll do something like, hey, or something like that, you know, where she'll do like a run of 3 notes down. So it's not some crazy long, complicated silulim like we're going to hear with Ofra, but she does have a lot of vocal control, and she appropriately adds in some ornaments around the basic melody.
When the rain is blowing in your face and the whole world is on your case, I could offer you a warm embrace to make you feel my love. When the evening shadows and the stars appear and there is no one there to dry your tears, I could hold you for a million years to make you feel my love. I know you haven't made your mind up yet, but I will never do you wrong. I've known it from the moment that we met, no doubt in my mind where you belong.
This is actually one of the covers that I think surpasses the original for me. This is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I'm not the biggest Bob Dylan fan. I don't love the sound of his voice, and this is really the quintessential version of To Make You Feel My Love for me. I love Adele's version, and this is a really, really nice example of not only the power when she goes up for that, I know you haven't made your mind up yet. She's really lifting the weight on that belt, as opposed to, I know you haven't made your mind up yet, something that has more of a heady mix in there. Also, I love her accent, you know, I love hearing her little British isms come out here and there. And I also like hearing how she flips sometimes. She really makes use of that chest to head voice where she'll go like, well, she'll start really, really nice and engaged, right? And then she'll flip over her break and suddenly go very, very light and breathy in her head voice. So very, very nice technique, beautiful rendition of that song.
Hear my heart burst again, for this is the end. I've drowned and dreamt this moment, so overdue I owe them. Swept away, I'm stolen. Let the sky fall when it crumbles. We will stand tall, face it all together. Let the sky fall when it crumbles. We will stand tall and face it all together at skyfall.
You hear some of that rasp on her voice at the end there, at skyfall. So this sounds like it's a doctored track where they took out the other instruments, so you're just getting her vocal. And there's a lot of reverb on it, very, very heavy, echoey reverb, which I don't love, but that's a great song and she sang it beautifully. There's something that's just like so sensuous about her voice. She's got a very, very sexy, kind of bluesy, jazzy, really, really rich voice. I love how back-placed her sound is and how open everything is. It's just very, very nice.
I heard that you're settled down, that you found a girl and you're married now. I heard that your dreams came true. Guess she gave you things I didn't give to you. Old friend, why are you so shy? Ain't like you to hold back. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best for you too. Don't forget me, I beg. I'll remember you say sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts instead.
So there's another track where it sounds like the other instruments were taken out. So you're getting that very like echoey at the bottom of a well kind of reverb on there. So I don't know where these isolated vocal tracks came from, but it's a little bit hard to listen to because of all of that reverb and the sound bouncing around. But you know, her voice is beautiful and I love how she goes for that on the high notes, you know. Da 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 da. Instead of flipping like that. Da 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 da. She really goes for it. Da. You know, she really belts it. So not a lot of singers could do that. She's really got that power, that strong voice where her voice just like commands respect and takes up space. She's got a big, big voice, big pipes.
Hello from the outside. At least I can say that I've tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it don't matter. It clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore.
I mean, one of the greatest songs ever written, right? Probably one of the most overplayed songs ever written, but an amazing song. And there you really hear her using that flip, right? That hello from the outside. At least I can say that I've tried to tell. Right, she flips there. To tell you I'm sorry. She really navigates that well, where she's flipping into her head voice and then coming right back into her chest voice. That's not an easy thing to do, to shift gears kind of mid-phrase like that.
This is my last night with you. Hold me like I'm more than just a friend. Give me a memory I can use.
Absolutely beautiful. So really, really strong power ballads. Great songwriting. I think Dave Grohl said that like her first record was like the perfect album, the best album he'd ever heard or something. She really is a master at crafting love songs that really tug at the heartstring and stick with you. They're very catchy and hooky, and she's got just a really, really strong voice, and there's something that's really sensual and sexy about the way she sings. So I love Adele. I think she's amazing. It's going to be interesting to now hear Ofra. It'll be a little bit of a palate cleanser, very, very different. All right, so let's jump right in and listen to some Ofra Haza now. So you can hear that it's so different, right? I mean, Ofra's singing in a much more trained way. Like you can hear that she's not singing opera, but she's using a lot of similar techniques to an opera singer. She's got that perfect vibrato. She's switching notes very quickly. She's coming at it from just a completely different perspective. Adele is kind of like singing it from the gut and from the heart, and you know, the way that you would speak to somebody, and it grabs you because it is so visceral and so raw and real. And Ofra is almost like coming from another planet, right? She sounds like she's coming from that Yemeni tradition with all the silulim, and she's got this really perfect vibrato, and she's singing all of these very, very complicated melodic lines that are not as easy to hook into right away. It's not like she's singing just a straight pop song. There's something that's very haunting, and I don't want to say like exotic about it because it sounds like I'm like exoticizing her or something, but there is something that's different and unique about the way that she's singing. It's not something that you would like hear on the radio right now, you know, and it makes me think of like a call to prayer or something. It really transports you to the Middle East and gives you almost this like haunting, chilling vibe, you know, like you like get chills when you listen to her. And she's just using her voice in a different way. It's much more complex, much more trained, prettier and lighter. You know, it doesn't have that same heft and like viscerality to it. You know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think that comparing someone like Adele is like taking the earthly and the terrestrial, you know, and stuff that is very real, and then taking someone like Ofra is very like heavenly and inspires you to kind of like look towards God or something. It's like a different kind of feeling when I listen to her. I think that her placement, where she's placing her resonance, is very different from where Adele places her resonance. So, you know, Adele is lifting that weight, right? Like, oh, so if Adele were to sing this, it would be Kol HaNeshama, right? It'd be very, very strong. Whereas when Ofra's singing it, she's kind of placing it more in like a choral. She's keeping all of her space very, very open, right? And it's more back here. Kol HaNeshama. It's more kind of like, they're both kind of back placed, but it's almost like you're swallowing your sound a little bit more and keeping your larynx much more low with Adele, whereas like this is much more like you're singing choral music or something. And it's got that prettiness of the opera too. You really hear a lot of her beautiful vibrato, and there's a certain lightness to her tone. It feels like it's floating on top, whereas the Adele tone is like coming from the earth.
החיים
lot of interesting techniques there, right? She's got that really, really very strong vibrato, right? That ah, you're really hearing that oscillation happening. She also bends a lot, which we don't hear Adele doing that much, you know? Like she'll be like, Kol ha-neshamayim, you hear her bending from note to note and doing those slides. She does a lot of those really complex repeated figures over and over again. The other thing is you'll never hear any grit on her voice, right? She has a very, very pure tone. It's almost crystal clear, like a bell, you know? Whereas Adele uses a lot of that vocal fry. She'll put a little bit of rasp or distortion on her tone sometimes. You'll never ever hear that from Ofra. She has a very, very clean, beautiful, pure kind of sound that just seems much more like pretty, you know? It's not as like gritty or like rock oriented. Whereas Adele has more of that like bluesy oomph to her sometimes. Ofra is very like, you know, celestial almost and very, very pure and choral sounding.
Why do I cry at night? Why do I feel so bad? Something holds me tight. It's something in the air. I have a prayer from my heart. Night after night after daylight.
So there you hear her breathy tone, right? She's letting some air come between her vocal cords. It's almost like she's like whispering in your ear. And it's interesting because I usually associate that breathy tone with being more a head voice sound, but she's using a very, very low breathy tone here. Like, why do I cry at night? You hear that kind of like whisper of sound, whisper of air behind the tone, right? She's not connecting her chord all the way. Very, very pretty. So that was a perfect example of those repeated phrases, right? That she does it a little bit faster than that, but it's the same ornament repeated over and over again. So one thing that I think is worth noting is that, you know, Adele doesn't add a lot of ornaments in her singing. And when she does, they're usually at the end of phrases. So she'll sing a very simple melodic line and then she'll add a couple notes at the end or do a turn and add some neighboring notes. But she's not adding ornaments in the middle of a phrase like Ofra. Ofra is constantly adding these ornaments and decorations around the main melody that she's singing. So just a completely different style of singing. Also, Ofra will also often sing without words, you know, she'll just sing these melodic lines on a vowel sound. She'll just do whoa or whatever, you know, she'll sing on like whoa or ah or oh or ooh, whereas Adele is rarely going to do that. Adele is usually delivering the story that she's written through her song, and then maybe she'll do a couple of lines of woes or something, but it's not a main character in the way that she sings, these vocalizations that are without words. That's something that Ofra really does in a lovely way, and sometimes they're improvised and sometimes they're pre-planned and will have these figures that she repeats in them, but she spends just as much time using her voice as just an instrument and singing on just one syllable as she does in singing words. And I think Ofra she dabbled in a lot of different styles, you know? I mean, she had her signature sound, which is this lovely blend of the traditional Yemeni singing with the, you know, Western pop sound that made her such a successful crossover artist. But she did dabble in a lot of other things too. She had like jazz records and she was on soundtracks, and Adele has like her thing that she does, you know, and she doesn't really stray too far from that. She's less experimental, I would say, as an artist. Although obviously she sings on soundtracks as well. We heard the Bond song in this compilation, but I think she's much more niched down and a specialist at what she does than Ofra, who's much more of a generalist. She can sing in all these different languages. She can sing in all these different styles. And even though she had her sweet spot as well, that was her signature sound, I think that she had a more variegated body of work than an Adele. Well, there you have it. So, you know, I think the main takeaway for me from watching this comparison is how much each of these vocal classifications is asked to cover, you know? I mean, it really displays the limits of vocal classification to me, because you can take Mezzo Soprano as a bucket and pull these two completely distinct artists out of that bucket. You know, somebody like Ofra that has such a clear, high voice and is able to do these amazing riffs and runs and sing in so many different styles. And then somebody who has just this powerful belt and writes these iconic, hooky masterpieces, you know? So they're completely different, and you would never think that they would have any crossover, but they're both classified as Mezzo Sopranos. So it's really interesting to think about. Thank you for making this video, Loris. I hope that you enjoyed my reaction. I thought it was very interesting to look at these two singers, and I hope that you found my analysis insightful and astute. So I will see you guys here next time. If this is a Monday, I'll see you Wednesday. If it's a Wednesday, I'll see you Monday. Until then, take care, of course. Happy listening and happy singing.